Hi, and welcome back to our discussion of pilot reports and aircraft observations. We'll continue our discussion with the pilot report elements, the things that need to go into a pilot report. And certain things are required every time. Other times you can put in or suggest or volunteer information whatever you want and whenever you want. So the required elements right off the bat is the type of the report. Typically that is determined by the air traffic controller or whoever is taking the observation from you. Also the location, the time, the altitude, and then also the aircraft type. Here are the supplementary or the voluntary information that you can provide. And that includes sky condition, flight visibility and weather, temperature, wind, turbulence, icing, and also remarks. So we'll start out with the required information. First is the type of the pilot report. And as I mentioned, this is typically determined by the person taking the observation or taking the pilot report. And pilot reports can be classified as either urgent or routine. There is a strict definition to urgent pilot reports, and this is typically determined by whoever's taking the observation. They'll look at what you're reporting and then either classify it as urgent or routine. Urgent pilot report is any pilot report that has the words or the phenomena tornadoes, funnel clouds, or waterspouts. Also, any pilot report that has severe or extreme turbulence, severe icing, hail, volcanic ash, low-level wind shear. Low-level wind shear is wind shear below 2,000 feet where you have airspeed fluctuations of more than 10 knots. And then finally, any other phenomena that the controller or whoever is making the observation, taking the observation, considers either hazardous, potentially hazardous to flight operations. So routine pilot reports are any other ones that don't have that, that phenomena that's considered urgent. After that comes the location. Where is the aircraft located? And they use a lot of different ways to describe this. Of course, the abbreviation starts out with OV, and then you can use airports, which have either 3 or 4 identifiers, typically 4. If it's a navigational facility in relation to a VOR, then it'll be a 3-letter designation. So here it shows the aircraft is over FSD, which is Sioux Falls. Also, it could be along a route segment. Route segment means between 2 different locations. So you'll see an example, they give you 2 locations and then a dash in between it. We'll look at some examples of that here shortly. And then, as I mentioned, it can be over a VHF Navaid or an airport. And they can also provide the radial and DME from a geographic position, usually a high altitude VOR. In this case, you see in the example GEP 225005 that tells you it's from the Gopher VOR. It is, and the Gopher VOR is down near Minnesota, down near Minneapolis. And it's 225 degrees from that location, so in other words to the southwest at about 5 miles. So this airplane is about 5 miles southwest of the Gopher VOR. Here's a route segment. This is between Minneapolis and Thief River Falls. I think that's pretty straightforward. After that comes the time, and the time is always in UTC time. They use 4 digits. After that, the altitude, and they use FL for the abbreviation. Altitude is always given in 3 digits, and it's in hundreds of feet, so you add 2 zeros to the end. Of course, if it's above 18,000 feet, then it's considered a flight level. If the report was made and the controller taking the observation didn't get the altitude from the aircraft, they'll put in flunkin. FL for, of course, the flight level or the altitude, and then UNKN is unknown. And then, of course, you've got DIRC and DIRD. Dirk indicates the aircraft was climbing during the climb, and Derd is the aircraft descending. After that comes the type of aircraft, and the type of aircraft TP always is in 4 digits, which includes numbers and letters. And if they don't know, if they didn't get the type of aircraft, they'll put unknown, UNKN. There are lots of different types of airplanes, and how do you know what the identifier is, the 4-letter identifier? Well, you can go out to this website. This is ICAO, and ICAO has a list of all the aircraft. Next comes the sky condition, SK, and what pilots need to do is estimate how much of the sky is covered with clouds. And we use octas, kind of estimate whether it's few, scattered, broken, or overcast. All cloud heights in pilot reports are measured in MSL, above sea level. And that's very important, and that gets confused because in the METARs they're measured AGL. So make sure that you remember that these are all MSL altitudes. Tops will be indicated by the identifier TOP, as you see in the example there. And you can report as many cloud layers as you want. You can report a lower one, a higher one. Only report what you know. And then if you don't see anything above, if it's clear blue sky above, then you can also report sky clear. Next comes flight visibility, and that's abbreviated FV. The weather is also included in this, WX. And if the flight visibility is, if you don't have any restrictions to flight visibility, then you report it as 99. That means, unlimited. And then the weather, you use standard METAR contractions and put, you report what you see, and then the person taking the observation will sort through the weather that you reported, and then will report the most dominant type. They can only put in 3, and the most dominant is reported first. After that comes temperature. Temperature is always measured in Celsius. Report what you see from the aircraft, and then that's the static air temperature. And then if it's colder than 0 degrees Celsius, they'll put an M in front of it to indicate minus. If they don't have the temperature, if you don't report the temperature, then they'll put in unknown. After that comes the wind. WV stands for wind vector, so it gives you the direction and the speed, the direction which wind is coming from. If you have GPS on your aircraft, you can estimate the wind. If you don't, then it's difficult to figure out the wind. You'll need an E6B. Wind is reported with respect to true north, and in tens of degrees. They'll always put the 3 digits in there. The wind speed is either 2 or 3 digits. If the wind is greater than 100 knots, they'll put a 1 in there for the first number to indicate how strong the winds are. That's all we have for this block. The next block will cover icing, turbulence, and remarks.